Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring the July 2023 club kits from Spellbinders. I am using the embossing folder club kit, the small die of the month, and then the clear stamp and die of the month kit. They also have a clear stamp kit where you could just get the stamp and not the coordinating dies. I love these. I use them all the time. I think that they're a great price point for what you get. And so today we're going to be talking about ink blending. These are the original foam blenders, not the domed ones. These are the original that came out with Distress Inks from Ranger. And you just have a little foam pad. They hold on with some Velcro. You stick them on there. You can peel them off, put them back on. And that is what I'm going to be using actually for the majority of the video today. But before we get into that, I wanted to show you some of the most common blending tools. So these being one of them. And for these, you always want to start off the page, work in a circular motion, and then bring the ink onto your paper. The next one that is wildly popular, and I think is probably the easiest for blending, is the blending brushes. I have brushes on brushes on brushes, and they do blend really easily, but it's the same thing. You want to start off the page and then blend on. It's much easier to get a softer look with brushes than it is to get with the foam pads. The third option, which isn't really for ink blending, it's more for just ink application. If you want a good saturated ink application, is the paper pouncers. And you can see it's much darker than anything else we're putting down, but these aren't really for ink blending. It's really more for adding color through stencils or on intricate die cuts. Now, I did want to show you over here on the right, when I go in over the Distress Ink a second time, we get that build of color, which is much more saturated, but also still has the blending capabilities. And that's how we're going to do it today. So just a little kind of recap about the things that are on the market. And then we're going to go in and talk about some things, some struggles that people have with their ink blending. This particular technique that we're going to do today is the one that I do every time. It's how I get really bold, saturated, well blended backgrounds. This panel I'm doing here, this is all on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock, by the way, super smooth. One of the first problems that you're going to have is not layering your colors. So here you can see I didn't layer my colors. I wanted to do a halo effect. That's what I'm doing with all the backgrounds today. And so by going in and starting with my lightest color in the middle and then building out to a darker color on the outside edges, when you don't let any of the colors lay over top of each other, except for just the bare minimum of the edges, you're not going to get a good blend. It's just not. It's going to look patchy. It's going to look a bit disjointed. And you're just not going to get good results like that, even if you're doing all of the other things, like using a light hand, blending off the page and bringing it onto the paper. If you're just putting down one color over the area and then just trying to blend its edges and not truly trying to blend the colors together, you're going to end up with this. And most of us are not going to be happy with this. So what I do is, and I'm going to show you one layer and then two layers. So one layer is already going to give us a better result. If you start with applying your lightest color all over the entire panel, and then building from there. So we're going to, I'm doing all the same things, light hand, starting off the page, working in a circular motion. And it's still not going to look great. It's going to look a little bit patchy. And I'm doing two panels because I'm going to use both of these to make my card. We're doing 3 cards today and one of them is blue. But I will use both the panels, but I wanted to show you the difference. So here, bringing in my next color, which is Blueprint Sketch, again, everything that I want to be Blueprint Sketch, as well as everything I want to be darker than that, I am adding this base color too. So you can see that my middle is still lighter. I'm still keeping that true halo effect, which is going to make my focal point kind of light up because your eye is going to be drawn to that center where it's the brightest. But every time, every color, so now we're onto the Chip Sapphire, I'm bringing this out. It's going over the same Salty Ocean, Blueprint Sketch, and then the Chip Sapphire. And then the last one will be the Black Soot, and again, just around the edges. So already we can see from the first example we did where there was no underlay of colors, it was just the colors basically right next to each other, that we're already getting a better blend. So, and I'll show you here them next to each other. So on the one on the right, the colors overlap. On the one on the left, the colors do not. So this is already working out better for us. The technique that I do is I do it twice. So once we do this one where we've laid down all the colors, built up all the colors all the way out to the darkest, then we're going to come back in with those lighter colors and we're going to go over, not like the Black Soot, we're going to go over it and we're going to go back over to where the Chip Sapphire is. And then from there, we're going to take the Blueprint Sketch. We're going to take the Blueprint Sketch right over those dark colors and blend out to that edge. So each time we're covering up a little bit more of the Salty Ocean, but because we're laying down layer on layer of ink, it's going to give us a really good, flawless, saturated blend. This is how you're going to get those like dramatic backgrounds. If you want to do a soft background, use your brushes and do the same thing. Just change the applicator that you're using. Brushes will give you a much softer look, but if it looks splotchy, do it twice and you'll get a much better blend that you're going to be much happier with. That's really going to be like super dense and saturated. Now, I'm a cheap chicken. I don't buy a lot of colored cardstock, so this is almost always how I do my backgrounds, on white. But if you have colored cardstock, it'll make your life a little bit easier. So here, the one on the right is twice, the one in the middle is one time, and the one on the end is no overlap at all, and you can see just how much better of a blend we get. For the colored cardstock, this is Spellbinders cardstock. This is part of their Brights, what is it? The sampler pack. That's what I was trying to think of, the Bright sampler pack. If you start with colored cardstock, and I've done a video on this before, it'll save you a little bit of time, a little bit of ink. So here I'm doing the same thing. That's why I'm just going to go ahead and speed it up. But it allows me to forego my lightest color and ink blending the whole thing and just go straight to one of my midtones. So if I was doing this on white, I would have used Twisted Citron, then the Mowed Lawn, then the Rustic Wilderness, then the Black Soot. But because I'm starting on green cardstock, I can go ahead and skip my lightest color, which would be the Twisted Citron, and then just go in there with the Mowed Lawn, the Rustic Wilderness, and then the Black Soot. But the technique, the doing it twice, is not going to change. So now you just saw me do the Black Soot, and now I'm coming back in with the Rustic Wilderness, and then I will come back in again with the Mowed Lawn. If you find that this is just a little trick you can use not to get fingerprints on things. This is just some masking tape. I'm just putting it on my fingertips so that I'm not getting darker pigment fingertips in the middle. But what I was going to say is if you find that your middle color is not blending as well into your midtone as you would like, you can use a slightly lighter color to blend that out and it will help. What about if you want to mix other color families? You can do that too. The technique is just a smidge different because we're not covering the entire panel. So for this one, we're going to go from pink to purple to blue. In order to do that, you want to make your swatch of color. I did this like a gradient from top to bottom. You could do it diagonal, you could do it left to right, whatever works. It'll work for all of those. But you want to make your swatch of color slightly bigger than what you actually want it to be. And that's so you will have that overlapping color in the middle that's going to be the two colors blended together. So here I started with Picked Raspberry. I'm going in with Wilted Violet. Again, you'll notice it's super patchy, but the first time around, it's gonna be. It just is. Even if you have well inked pads, even if you are going in and have a well seasoned foam pad. The only time I've ever seen like really truly dark saturation, is like when you go in with a foam pad, like really ink it up with a freshly inked ink pad, and then go in and then just really kind of scrub it in. But that's a little bit different than trying to get a flawless kind of inked panel. So here, you can see each one is just a little bit wider. I actually thought, this is kind of funny, I don't mind it in the card, but I thought the Villainous Potion would be lighter than the Chip Sapphire. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure it is. Like I said, I don't mind it, but I might have switched that up if I was redoing it again. So all the way out to the black soot at the bottom, and then I did speed this up. This is the second time I'm going in, and here's where we can really see that color start to build and blend. And I'm not doing anything different. It's just at a faster speed. You're welcome to slow it down if you would like. But because we're, getting that really good ink application, we're still using the circular motion, still starting off the page so we don't get those, circle spots. But we are getting a lot of really good blending here and a really saturated background. So ultimately, I was super happy with the way all of them came out. If you watch my channel, you know that I love a bit of shimmer and shine in the background. I think it's a fun way to add more interest to your backgrounds. And so what you see me doing here is just spattering on some perfect pearls that I've mixed with a little bit of water. And then I used gold as well for the green. You certainly can skip this step, or you could use a shimmer spray if you were into that and not the perfect pearls. This is just a fun little way to add something a little bit extra, so that you can really see the shine, and the light catches it so much better. So now we're going to move on to building the actual cards. I use the embossing folder. This is the regular embossing folder club kit, not the 3D. And I used it for every single one of these backgrounds. This embossing folder is $9 and it is totally worth it. Their embossing folders are very large. Spellbinders has such large embossing folders, and they give you a lot of options for how you want to emboss something. There you saw me heat setting this panel. That is so important because we're going to be embossing on it. Distress ink is made to stay wet longer so that you can emboss with it. And so because we put in all of those layers of, distress ink that we're working with, you want to make sure that it's nice and dry before you're doing any stamping and embossing. With that said, I do like distress inks for my backgrounds because I like all the techniques you can do with them, and so I'm pretty heavily invested in them. But this will work with any inks that you have. This technique will work with any inks that you have as far as ink blending, and it'll be even easier if you're using like a pigment or an oxide ink, just because they have more coverage. So here I am inking this up with, I think I used Honeybee's white pigment ink, and then I am stamping that down onto, this is the second background that we did without all the spatters, and then I'm going to heat emboss this in white. I was trying to come up with a couple of different ways. Christmas in July is really hard for me. That doesn't mean that these products aren't super cute. They are. I love them. And if it was Christmas time, I would be like, yes, absolutely. But it's really hard for me to make Christmas cards when it's like 85 degrees out. I'm a last minute Christmas card maker. I like to do it when it's starting to get cold. Here where I live, we have the full-on traditional 4 seasons. And if Indian summer is a 5th season, we got that too. But yeah, it's hard for me to make them in the summer. But I think that these all came out pretty cute. You might notice that I'm not using my Misty for this, that I'm using my stamp wheel. I don't normally stamp with my stamp wheel, but I could not find, they're around here somewhere, but I couldn't find my Sweet Petunia, what are those called? What are they? The sticky mats. I couldn't find them for inside my Misty. And so I just went the path of least resistance and grabbed my stamp wheel because it has the photopolymer sticky mat in it. These are the pieces parts for the small stamp or small die of the month, and I am going to cut all of those out of white because I'm going to be coloring them. I'm also going to use the coordinating dies for the clear Stampin' Die kit to cut these out, And then here I cut out the small die of the month out of glitter paper. Look at this. Do you see all that glitter? Isn't it just like beautiful? So anyway, I cut it out of the glitter paper and I cut it out of white because I really wanted to stack it up and give it some dimension. And in order to get all the parts popped out, I just pulled out the dies, popped out what I needed, and then placed them back in there because I am going to, I want to know where all the pieces go when I go to put it back together, even though I am going to be using some press and seal to assist me in that. So that way I can pick everything up as it's intended, and then it will go back down as it's intended. Normally, when I am stacking die cuts for height, I like to do them off the card. I like to do them individually and then put them in place. But because these are strategically placed in order to make that tree shape, you certainly could use them separately. Absolutely. But these ones are placed to make a tree. I wanted to be able to glue one set down as a full piece, which is what I'm doing here. I'm just going to leave it on the press and seal. I'm going to add my glue to the back, and then I'm going to add it to my background. And then I will stack up my next layer of die cuts and then the final layer of die cuts, which are the glitter ones that I cut out. These are fun. Super, super fun. There's another, what is it? The large die that's the stocking. That one's great too. I don't get the large die. That's not one of the subscriptions, but these ones are always like, they're always on the same theme. And but if you're into this Christmas in July, or even just, for your Christmas cards to get a head start out of them, if you're not like me and you don't wait until the last minute, you can certainly check out the large die of the month, because that one's really beautiful. It's a stocking. It's super cute. What else are we going to talk about? Oh, in my last video, several of you were horrified when I had made the comment that my brother-in-law might throw away the card I made him. You guys were like, no, absolutely not. He cannot throw that away. And I'm going to tell you that does not bother me. If he wanted to throw it away, he totally could have, and I wouldn't have given a second thought about it. There's a reason why. Now, before I tell you that reason, I will tell you that when I gave him the card, he was like, this is incredible. Thank you so much for my card. And I told him, I told my YouTuber followers that you were probably going to throw it away, and they were all like absolutely horrified. And he was like, no, I have a shoebox in my closet where I save some of my cards, and this one will be going in the shoebox. So have no fear, ladies and gents. He is not going to throw it away. But like I said, if he did, I wouldn't have cared. And I'm going to tell you why that is. I'm a selfish card maker. That's it. I make cards for other people to let them know that I'm thinking of them, and that, whether it's their birthday or condolences or any of those things, there are cards that I make specifically for other people, but 95% of the time, I am making the card for myself because I enjoy the process, because it calms my anxiety, because it allows me a creative outlet. So because of that, the process of the card making is what is the most important to me. And then if somebody else enjoys it on the other side, great. But if they don't, that's great too. It doesn't matter to me. It's not something that I carry around, and I'm not saying that it's wrong or bad to care whether or not people keep your cards. That's not what I'm saying. If it bothers you, I totally get that, because you spent all of your time in products, but your motivation may just be different than mine. I guess I kind of view it as the same way like I do donating money or giving money to charity. My ex-husband and I used to have this conversation all the time when we would go downtown or when we would be in an area where there were homeless people or anything like that. And I would always give them money. And his response was always, well, they're just going to go buy drugs with it, or they're just going to go buy alcohol with it, or they're just going to go buy whatever. Doesn't that bother you? And I said no, because God has told me that it is my job, as a Christian, as somebody who wants to shine Jesus's light in the world, it is my job to do the giving. What they do with it once they've received it is between them and God. That has nothing to do with me. That's none of my business, in fact. I hope in my heart, when I give it to them, I genuinely hope that they will use it for their betterment, or that I am being used as a tool to answer their prayers. But if that's not the case, that's none of my business. That's between them and God. So I view card making the same way. Maybe not as intense. Maybe not as intense. But I create the card because it's something I feel compelled to do, that calms me, that makes me happy, that I can use this artistic talent that God has given me. But once the card is created, and if it's given or it's not given, what happens to the card after that is meh most of the time. There are some cards that are very special to me. The first card that I ever had published, I still have, and that one is special to me. The first card that I made with my own stamp set that I created, super special to me. I save, this is true, I save the cards that people send me. Like, I enjoy saving their hard work, but my hard work, I don't. It's okay. It is okay to enjoy it for what it is and then let it go. My favorite thing, I love this, is I think the first person I think I saw do it was actually Jennifer, is leaving like a note, writing your note on like a sticky note that you stick inside the card, and then the other person can remove the sticky note and then send it off into the world to the next person so that the card can be reused. I love that. That makes my heart super happy. So yeah, so that's just my take on it. It doesn't matter to me. Let's go back to the card for a second. So we've done the Copa coloring of the stamp. Like, we were going to get out of here without any coloring, right? Come on, whose channel is this? And then these are actually the dies for the poinsettia leaves, or for the poinsettias, but I turned them into leaves because I needed something to break up the little bunches of blooms I wanted to do, and leaves are really great for that. But I didn't have any leaves in this set, and so I just made my own. It was great. They worked perfectly. For the florals, I knew, because I had that pink, purple, blue background that we created, that I wanted to do the flowers like the same tones, the same general colors that were going to, be in the background, maybe just a little bit brighter. And so for those florals, I chose to color them pinks and purples. Now, these poinsettia flowers, I colored the same ways as the leaves. Darkest toward the center, lighter as it gets out toward the tips. For the other ones, are they roses? Are they peonies? Are they chrysanthemums? I don't know. They're cute little multi-layer flowers. For those ones, I chose to color the base layer super dark. And then for the embossing, the indentations that are left in the die, I just did like a couple of little lines of dark and then mid-tone and then lightest, just to create a little bit of depth and dimension so they weren't all just one color. But I didn't spend a lot of time. I'm just being honest. I didn't spend a lot of time to make sure that they were super blended because they are smaller pieces, and I didn't really think that my hard work was going to be super noticed if I spent a ton of time coloring the flowers. I just didn't think it was necessary. And then pinks are challenging because the lightest color lightens up the other pinks quite a bit, so just be aware of that. You might not want to add too much of that RVO2. For the purples, I colored them the same way as I did the previous poinsettias and the leaves, so I'm really just going to show you the color combination, and then we're going to move on to kind of putting everything together for the cards. These I think came out super cute. So here I have this glittery base, and now I found it easiest to go in and lay out all of the pieces parts first. So that way I wasn't, struggling to find all of my pieces as I was gluing. I just laid them down where they fit, and then I was able to go in and glue them. This crystal katana, okay, it's for gems, but I'm going to tell you right now, sirs and ma'ams, that it is excellent for picking up small die cuts. I mean, it's great. It's super, super great. And if you are a person who doesn't own one yet, I would highly recommend purchasing the crystal katana. I imagine soon the other ones will be off the market because she did get her patent. Good for her. Yes, girl, you do you. Super happy for you. And so I use this to pick up the smaller die cuts and put them in place. And it was really very, very helpful. And you guys know, I don't even like die cuts, because I hate chasing them around all over the place. But this little tool does make it substantially less miserable for me in the process of creating with die cuts. So I am super grateful for that. I did cut out some mirror gold cardstock for my centers as well as my little berries, and I love it. Think it's super fun. Love the way that came out. For this one, this is the clear Stampin' Die that we heat embossed. Does it need anything extra? No. Did I give it something extra anyway? Absolutely. So I had some more of that white glitter cardstock that I cut some poinsettias out of. And then I gave them, again, gold centers. There's those leaves we colored up. And then I'm just going to do little clusters, 2 in the bottom right, 1 in the top left. But you could certainly flip-flop that or do more flowers than that. I found it easier to build them beforehand, and then I would lay my flowers out where I wanted them. I would pick up my flower, put a little glue on just the leaf, and then I would get the leaf in position. Thank God for liquid adhesive. I would get the leaf in position, and then once I pushed it down and had given it a second to dry, I could pick them both up together and then adhere them down. Because remember, we have a couple of layers of cardstock, so this frame is popped up. But the center is not, so I need to make sure that I have enough of the flower adhered to the part that is popped up that it's structurally sound, and I'm not going to have to add any foam tape or anything underneath the petals that are hanging over, and I didn't. And then this is this one, and I think it's super adorable. For the last one, normally, this one, I wanted the sentiment portion to lay flat. So before I glue everything together to pop it up, I glued the sentiment in place first. Then I went in with my extra pieces to give the frame dimension and then put that in place. This is where the colored flowers are going to come into effect, and I did them the same way with the flowers and the leaves. What was I going to say? There was something, but I think I've lost it. I was telling who was it? Dawn and maybe my mom, that it's funny when you're doing voiceovers because if you lose your spot about what you're talking about, there's no other person to be like, oh, you were talking about XYZ, and then to remind you so that you can get back on track. You're just out here winging it. And my mom, I think it was my mom, asked me, do you ever go back and listen to it so you can figure out where you were? And I'm like, no, nope, I do not. These voiceovers are so long and I do it in one shot the majority of the time. So sometimes when I'm answering comments or questions, when I go back, I'll catch it and be like, oh, that's what I was going to say. But most often the thoughts are just lost out in the world, and I don't do anything with them. I never come back to them. Or sometimes I do and I don't realize it was something I forgot. You know how it goes. So yeah, these, I really, really liked these, the bright pops of color because this has a lot of green in it. This frame has a lot of green in it. Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. Normally, I am a person who likes to cover up my white die cuts. I like to color the edges. This one actually did not bother me, and I think the reason that it didn't was because my sentiment is white on the inside of it. So I think that's the reason why the outline didn't bother me. You certainly could color it like we've done in other videos, but I didn't really feel like it was necessary. So this is all 3 cards. I hope this helps you gain some confidence with your ink blending. I hope you learned a little something. If you have any comments, of course, please let me know below. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.